Hello and welcome to the preview of the Scottish Men's Premiership final between Hawick and Currie Chieftains. It is a repeat of last year's classic final, and who will come out on top this weekend? Before the game, we spoke to representatives of both clubs, starting off with Hawick's club captain, Sean Muir.
First off, congratulations on getting to your second Premiership final in a row. How are you feeling going into the final?
Thank you. Obviously excited. It's been a long wait since the semi-final, so it's a lot of time to think about it. But just happy it's here and really looking forward to getting started against Currie.
Well, yeah, obviously it was a tough semi-final as well against fellow Borders opposition in Kelso as well. But having that home advantage as well must have helped.
No, it was. Look, Kelso are a really tough opponent, and they've had a fair play to them. They had a great season, just being promoted from National 1, and the conditions that day were very tough. And Kelso, they're a really stuffy side, good forward pack, so we had to battle through it. And like I say, I was delighted with the result and get to our second final in a row.
Well, looking back on the season gone past, obviously 16 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss. It was quite a tough season as well for you. So what were some of the highlights and some of the tough parts of the season?
Look, it was the start of the season, I'd say pretty slow, but we obviously lost the second game against Mar, which was a bit of a lesson for us. It was the first defeat in, I think, 18 months. So we taken it pretty hard. Fair play to Mar, they've really done a job on us. It was a very poor day at the office, but we bounced back massively in the next 2 or 3 games, and I think that's a sign of this team we've got. We won defeat and we've not lost again all season. So we retain our scars and we bounced on, and like I say, we've had a really, really good season again.
Well, it must be a credit to you guys as well. I believe unbeaten at home in 4 or 5 years now as well. So how has it been, obviously, with that pressure, as you say, going into the season unbeaten as well? How did you guys cope well with that and the unbeaten record at home?
Yeah, obviously everybody was chatting about it going into the season, being undefeated for so long. But I think I've said this to a few people, we don't really speak about it. We don't discuss unbeaten records or whatever. It's cliche and it's pretty boring, but we just take it a game at a time. We'll play the game, concentrate on that opponent, and once that's done, we'll go on Tuesday night and look at the next game week. And that's what we've done the last 2 or 3 seasons, and it's worked pretty well for us. We keep our feet on the ground and we set our targets at pre-season in-house, and we do everything we can to achieve them.
For yourself, obviously, club captain in the club's 150th year, a massive personal achievement for yourself, and obviously being from Hawick, that must be quite an achievement for you.
Yeah, look, it's massive. Being a Hawick boy, it's the only club I've played for. It's huge, 150th season, and it makes it even sweeter that I'm in a successful team, and we've got obviously finals to look forward to. But I'm lucky I've got a great squad behind us, 2 vice captains, Fraser Rennick and Kirk Ford, who are massive for me. I rely on them a lot. Look, I'm not just on the pitch making all the decisions myself. I've got a really good leadership group around about us, and they're massive for me, and I feel we work well together, and it makes my job a lot easier when you have these guys next year.
Looking ahead to the Premiership final against Currie Chieftains, it's a repeat as well of last season. So for you, what is going to be different from last season, and what challenges are you expecting that Currie will bring down to Mansfield?
Yeah, leave it too late this year, but look, it's massive respect for Currie. The games we've had in the last 2 or 3 seasons, and some of them have been epic. Some of the battles have been very tough, and you're feeling them for a few days afterwards. So we have that much respect for them. Obviously, I know a lot of the players playing in representative sides, and obviously just getting accustomed to playing them. We know what they'll bring. They're a very good team if you let them play, and if you stand off them like we did in the final last year and let them get in their stride, they can be very hard to peg back. So I think the big emphasis on us will be just starting fast, getting into shape and structure as quickly as possible, and kind of making it tough for them to play.
And for the neutral, is there any players that they should be looking out for? Anyone that is a one to watch for you?
There's a few in our team, if I'm honest, not being biased, but obviously in centre, Andrew Mitchell, I think he's scored about 20 odd tries this season, so he's definitely one. And then up front, you've got boys like Jay Linton, Callum Rennick, but Fraser Rennick, who's probably the best hooker in the league by a long shot, and back one from is probably Connor Sutherland. I think he's went under radar a little bit this year. He's been injured, but I've not seen anybody defend like him, so maybe I'd be watching for him. I think he's got a big future in the game if he keeps progressing, and he could probably definitely go up the ladder.
And I guess final question then, what will it mean to not just yourself, but to the entire club and to the entire town as well to do the double and win back-to-back league championships?
Massive. Look, it's I'll know how there was a target in pre-season. It was what we spoke about. We know it's harder to retain a title than it is to win it for the first time. So we've been massively focused on that, and to have one game to go, it's very exciting. But there'll obviously be pressure and nerves come the day. But if you could win it, obviously in the 150th season, like we've touched on, it would mean everything to this group and also the club as a whole.
Great to hear that from Sean Muir. And ahead of going back down to Mansfield Park from the final, we caught up with Jamie Forbes from Currie Chieftains.
Jamie, first off, congratulations again on making the Premiership final. How are you feeling after what's been quite a long season?
Yeah, thank you. We're obviously delighted to be in the final again. Obviously for Currie, that's sort of our third final in 3 years, so we're really, as a club, very proud of that. It has been a long season. I think I've never finished a season in sort of May before, so it does feel like it's been probably one of the longest seasons that I've personally ever played, and I feel like I've been doing this for a while by now. But yeah, it's good to sort of have one final game to really hopefully bookend the season the way that we want to.
It's been quite, as you say, quite a long season. It's been quite a different season for Currie. You finished obviously third behind Hawick and Mar. Going into that semi-final against Mar, obviously away as well in Troon, what were your thoughts going into that, and how did you manage to get that victory in the end?
To be honest with you, there's quite a lot of similarities with the game on the 4th of May, in the sense that we played Mar kind of the weekend before, and then we've got them again sort of, or we had them again a week afterwards. Obviously with Hawick leading up to this, there's a couple of weeks in between, and they've obviously got a big match in the cup final the week beforehand. But there's a lot of similarities there. I mean, we were just looking at it from a perspective of how can we get better from the game that we previously played. Our sort of big thing this year was to try not dwell on things that have happened and try and sort of bounce back. And hopefully that's what we plan to do next week. So it's for us, it's been kind of about the process and trying to kind of figure out our best game plan for going back down there. And hopefully we get a similar result than what we did in the semi.
Well, obviously, as you say, that it is going back. It's a repeat of last year's final where you guys, unfortunately, it was a last-minute try from Hawick to claim it. So going into the game, what are your thoughts? What's going to be a bit different from last year? What are the changes that you guys will be looking to make?
Again, it's quite difficult for us to sort of reflect on last year because it's been such a different year. I know. It looks very similar in the sense that it's Hawick and Currie down at Mansfield again. Hopefully, on a nice day in May. I know previously or last year it was delayed a little bit, and we actually did get a really nice day down there. I know that a lot of their volunteers, I think they were scraping the pitch the morning beforehand to make sure it went ahead. But it was a beautiful day down there, so we're obviously hoping for that again. We know what they're going to bring. They know what we're going to bring. I genuinely believe it's going to be who performs on the day better. And for us, we've just kind of got to try and stick to our processes, keep thinking about what we can do. And hopefully we get a slightly different result this year.
Well, it's going to be, obviously, the main thing, great support from Currie. There was a lot last year as well, a lot of vocal support as well from the Currie fans as well. So how good is it as well, even though that it's a way to have that support from the fans and the members of Currie?
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, we are a community club, and we sort of we want to build on that as a club. But our support and the fan base that we've got is amazing. A lot of them are kind of our seconds, thirds, and Colts players. When we're back at Millennium, we call it Colts Corner, that they get sort of down in that bottom right hand corner and sort of slam as much as they can on the back of the stand. It's an old stand, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but it does happen. And they're brilliant. As you say, they're always vocal. We know every single one of them by name. So there's a real kind of connection there. And it does really make a difference. I know just from kind of being involved in the kind of leadership stuff at Currie, obviously we've got 2 buses full already. I think they're trying to get sort of a third and fourth on the go. So there is going to be sort of a big support coming down, and we hope that they are in full voice again.
Well, I guess from a neutral perspective as well, it is going to be a really, really close final. Who from your side, what are the key players that we should be looking out for going into the game?
In our forward pack, I think Sam Cardozi this year has been tremendous. He's come from Dundee, recently got a job in Edinburgh, so found his way through to Currie. So he's been excellent for us in the back row this year. And then I would say in the backs, guys like DJ Innes and Charlie Brett are real kind of game breakers for us. I'm doing my best not to say my own name here, but no, just kidding. Yeah, I think those two, if DJ and Charlie play well, it normally kind of stems some good backs play for us. And then young Callum Beckett's kind of jumped in at 10 for us. He's obviously come back from a really difficult knee injury when he played for Stirling about 12 months ago. So he's really stepped up over the last couple of weeks, played really well against Mar. He's been doing really well for Caledonia in the inter-district stuff as well. So they're probably the big four that I would say if they play well, we normally have a half decent day at the office.
So I guess just to wrap up then, looking ahead, obviously third final in a row as well, what would it mean to yourself, to the club, to everyone to claim the Premiership?
Yeah, it'd be massive. I mean, I think at the start of every year, and every team that's in the Premiership will have the same goal, which is to get to this point and then to win it. I think for us, that goal has always been there. We've tried this year to not make it too sort of orientated on that. That's all we want to do, is win the Premiership. Obviously now that we're in that situation and we're in the game, that's obviously all we want to do now, but try to not make it all about that all year round. But as I said at the beginning, like having been in two of these before, I unfortunately missed the first one due to COVID, but having been in two previously and we're in a third one, from a perspective of a club and longevity and what we're doing in this league, we're obviously getting something right in that regard. We would just love to make sure that we get over the line and actually sort of win one. I think we've been unfortunate in the two finals that we've been in. Full credit to Mar and Hawick, who deserved the victories in those 2 years, but we're hoping that we can potentially be the kind of third team on that ladder that, to be honest with you, probably have deserved. Hawick, Mar and ourselves, I would say, have probably deserved a Premiership over the course of these 3 years. So in some ways it would be quite nice. For me personally, I've been at this for a while now. I had plans of never playing again after that final against Hawick last year. It obviously never went the correct way, and then Mark and Ali sort of managed to twist my arm over a coffee to play one more year. So potentially for me, this might be my last game, which is pretty exciting, but also a little bit daunting. So I am hoping that it goes a positive way and I can leave my club in a good place, if you like. But I've not made any concrete decisions yet. My wife is always very sort of don't make any hasty decisions and all that sort of stuff. So I'm not necessarily saying that it definitely is, but I would love it. If it was, I would love that to be the kind of the last chapter.
Great insight there from Jamie Forbes. And earlier this week, we caught up with Chris Paterson and Dale Clancy on the official Scottish Rugby Podcast to talk all things club rugby and looking forward to an exciting match on Saturday. I'm delighted to be joined today by regular on the podcast, Chris Paterson, and then the special guest today, Dale Clancy. Thanks very much for coming along today.
No, thank you for having us. It's great to be here. First time in here as well. So
in this
getting the big tour.
I know.
You're telling us you've never been in the pitch either.
I've never been in the pitch.
Just the commentary box.
Did you see me play?
You've never pitch invader, no?
Oh, no, I'm for Peoples. And that involves running as well. So.
This entire season has been... It's sort of been a bit different. Obviously, with them, last year was obviously a full unbeaten season and a cup double to go with that. They won the cup here against Edinburgh Accies on last Saturday, but they're not going into unbeaten. They did lose to Mar earlier on in the season, but it has still been quite a dominant season for Hawick, would you say?
Yeah, I think they've been challenged. I think especially at the start. Obviously, Mar defeated them, and then they had a big challenge in that kind of window. They probably sorted out the top 3 places against Currie. And we're able to back that up and get a good victory. But yeah, and on top of that, they've had a change in coaching staff as well. So there's been a lot of challenges thrown at Hawick this season. That being said, they've just won the cup final in what was one of the best cup finals I can remember in a long time. So they've been able to come through that challenge. And the one thing Hawick always have is they've got a really strong forward pack, certainly, and they've got real good match winners in the backs. So although there's been a little bit of a change in coaching staff, the other teams have maybe narrowed the gap slightly. They still have all the weaponry to brush teams aside. So it's been another good season for Hawick, but they're obviously chasing the treble. Border League in the bag, Scottish Cup in the bag, and then it's on to the Premiership to try and nail that.
Yeah, Sean mentioned the slow start to the season, didn't he? And it was, I suppose, being off the back of such success before that, it was a slow start, and it got that defeat. But if you're going to lose, it's the right time to lose. You know what I mean? And how you react to that loss so early in the season. Was it week 2, I think? Yeah. Where, it's the right time to lose. You don't want to be losing the business end in playoffs and finals. So they'll use that to go forward. It's the same final as last year as well, and they dug it out in the final play, in the final moments. So that there's that'll be could be an influence on both sides, obviously on the positive side for Hawick, and on the negative side for Currie in terms of having been so close last year. Do you use that? Is there enough turnover of players? There probably is. There's obviously new coaches, but there's similarity in players on both sides that can use that still as motivation. But yeah, John also mentioned a couple of players kept forward who was, I thought, really, really good from what I saw at the weekend in the cup final. Fraser Rennick's a quality player, so there's experience and match winners between them there.
Andrew Mitchell as well, league's top try scorer, 20 tries in 18 appearances. Got a try here at the weekend as well. And Kirkford, as we said there, obviously he's got the most points in the entire league as well. So they do rely on some players, and it's all about their game management, isn't it? Knowing that they can rely on players like Kirkford who can come up at that opportunity to maybe change the game around.
Yeah, I think Chris has just mentioned a couple of them. I could probably go on all day about players in each squad, and certainly Hawick, but Andrew Mitchell's had his most prolific campaign, scoring tries, and one of the big questions was who's going to fill the void after Ethan Riley left. Obviously he was a big kind of final piece of the jigsaw, kind of called him last year for Hawick at 12, and kind of got the best out of players either side of him. And Lee Armstrong's came back in and filled the void, got man of the match at the weekend. So, there's players in there that can really make that do a lot of damage. And we've not even mentioned the two in the back row as well, Callum Rennick, who's an absolute torpedo of a back row, and Jay Linton, who's an absolute juggernaut. So, they've got a lot of really good players. And one thing about Hawick as well is they're able to adapt their style to most teams. Like they're very attritional up front. And I would say probably part of their weak point is perhaps in the wing sometimes. They've not got the most recognisable halfback pairing in the division either, but they're able to adapt to different teams, and I think that says a lot about the team, and the fact that they've been able to carry that over against probably quite an expansive team at the weekend with a new coaching setup. I think it speaks volumes about the club.
How big is it? Obviously they've had a game here at the weekend. They've got 2 massive games back to back as well after such a long period off. Obviously now we're into the kind of 7 circuit as well. So it really is quite a big time to be playing these 2 games back to back.
I think it helps to do, especially if you win. Obviously won last weekend, and I think that helps. You get momentum, you get a roll, your confidence is you kind of have to sit and watch that and think, I wonder, yes, will be more rested, of course it will be, but I think playing big games and finals and at the end of the season consecutively, I think is only a positive. I don't think Hawick picked up any injuries at the weekend. That's the only downside if you do pick up 1 or 2. But no, I think it's a real positive that can take confidence from winning last year, from winning last weekend, and going in with a fairly settled squad. I think they will keep it quite tight. I think that's where they'll see their strength, but also where they'll nullify a wee bit of Currie's potential wider attack. So, and Mitchell's a big part of that, isn't he, in terms of the focal point in the midfield. And kind of I remember Andrew Mitchell coming through the age grade stuff, and he was big and physical, 12, hard runner. But over the last maybe a few times I've seen him, he's aimed for space. That's slightly bit more of that late movement on the ball. If he's crashing up, he's just no going straight and it's hard to stop anyway, but he's finding gaps and shoulders, and he's getting that big pack in the front foot.
The game at the weekend was the prime example of that. Andrew Mitchell at his best, being able to hit angles and actually hit gaps and burst through. There was a try, I think, against Kelso this season, earlier on in the league campaign, where it was exactly that. But to add to that, he's still quite young in terms. He's obviously had a bit of an attempt at Super Series as well, went back to his hometown club, but he's looked at as a bit of a leader as well. And you can see why when you're racking in 20 tries in a league campaign, how other players are going to look up to you. But in terms of being one of the younger members in the squad, he's already got a lot of good leadership qualities. So, in a back division where perhaps they've got some soft voices, he'll be a player that they'll look to in the backs to get them ticking.
Currie have got a bit of experience in the midfield as well, though, haven't they?
Just a little bit. Just a little bit.
It's 3 in a row now for Currie. Obviously, they've lost the last 2. What do you think they have to do to make it third time's a charm?
Score more points than the opposition would be a good start for them. I think it depends how you look at it. You go into this bearing scars of two different finals, being the favourites, then being beaten by the underdogs in what was a great story for Mar, and then going into it as the underdogs and playing probably against Hawick what was the immaculate game plan. They kicked them in the right areas. They want their big pack to play from deep inside their own half. So Currie's approach to that game was impeccable. They were down, I think Hawick at the time were down to 13 men in the last minute, and then Ronan McKean snatches it in the corner. So, there's a lot of lessons to be learnt from those games, but they've got back into the same position again. They've had to come through some difficult challenges to get in the conversation to be back in a final. And, I don't think Hawick have been beaten at home since it was at Glasgow Hawks in 2019 or something. It was or 2020, a few years ago since Hawick have been beaten at home. So it's a big task, but they then go into it again in similar fashion what they did last year. Everybody's expecting Hawick to win. I don't think anybody's going into it thinking that Hawick are underdogs. They're going in strong favourites, home advantage, and Currie just need to try and adopt that same game plan and manage the game, really. And they've got a lot of experienced players, like most of you just mentioned about in the centres. A lot of good leaders in the back row, and in the centres they've got, in the fly half as well, they've got a lot of good game managers and leaders on that side. Discipline's
key, isn't it? Like, it's, agree with everything Dale's saying, but it's like I think for the away side as well, you can apply loads of pressure if you're squeaky clean with your discipline and make the home side, make Hawick, difficult to get out. Don't give anything cheap to give field position for Hawick to get the rumble on. So I think that discipline with experience in midfield with DJ Ennis as well. You mentioned Jamie Forbes and these guys. They'll know it. So I think they'll have an attacking mentality because Hawick's home record is so good. You do have to take a risk. You do have to go for it. But in terms of discipline, if you win that battle, then you give yourself a chance to maybe start picking away or picking at a scab of Hawick and the confidence that should come with being such a firm favourite. So staying the right side of the penalty count is going to be really, really important.
They haven't been the most prolific in individual try scorers this season, Currie, but they have been, as you say, they're a very strong, very physical team, which I guess kind of proves that they're not just relying on one or two individuals as well. They are looking to go forward and go together as a team.
I think they used all their tries up in the first couple of games because they were hammering folk for fun. And I thought then, if I'm being brutally honest, I thought then Currie were probably the strongest team in the division, and then you get a reaction from Hawick and they prove me wrong, and we are where we are now. And I think that's it. Like, it was a low scoring affair in the cup semi-final between Hawick and Currie, 16 points to 3, and obviously Hawick went to Stonyhill as well and didn't concede a point. So their defence is going to be strong. It's always going to be strong, Hawick's defence. So
that's what I mean about Currie taking a risk. Almost someone maybe they were doing the early part of the season, whether it's kick taps, whether it's short line outs, whether it's counter-attack where they would usually kick, just upset that rhythm that Hawick are in against quality opposition, and especially in the finals.
If they approach it in a similar fashion as to what Edinburgh did the second half, tempo, if they keep the tempo high, and if they're staying in the game for an hour, that bench is going to be crucial. And I think that's probably between the two sides where Currie might hold a slender advantage, because up front there's a lot of good players in that Hawick side, but most of them will have to go for 80 minutes to get the best out of it. So if Currie are able to kind of control the game and get elements and moments in the game where they can dictate the pace of play and where the game's played, then Hawick will be having to answer some questions, but it is a matter of a bit of tempo.
Their squad depth is quite immaculate. Like, obviously you've got the likes of Ryan Stewart as well, who's been playing at hooker, Graham Carson, and in the back you've got Charlie Britt as well, who have been very key players for Currie across the entire season. So as you say, their squad depth is huge in a game, especially like this.
Yeah, of course it is. And being able to deal with big moments and big games as well. So if you've got a greater experience and depth throughout your replacements, your bench, so the key moments could be in the last 15 or quite likely 15, 5, 10 minutes where you might have your replacements on. So having that squad depth across your replacements is really important. And it's quite funny just listening to Jamie Forbes there talking about the goal and the clear vision, and when you meet up in the start of pre-season and everybody kind of visualises himself winning the trophy at the end of the year, I think they have to use that as inspiration as well. I mean, he said that in the interview that you look at the process, not the end point. But I think when you are at your final game of the season and you have trained all year and you have been every Tuesday, Thursday and Saturday and Monday night extras, there's nothing wrong with kind of dreaming about lifting that trophy, culminating, and I think that can inspire in the last few minutes, as long as you keep your discipline and trust your team's process.
One thing's for sure, definitely, and we saw it last year at the final, they will have a very strong backing of the Currie fans there as well. It is going to be one hell of a day down at Mansfield on Saturday from both supporters.
Yeah, definitely. We'll see a lot of green, and there'll be a lot of amber and black as well. But there's a lot of people who perhaps are not fans of the playoff system, and I've spoke to various people at a lot of depth, but it's like the cup final. It's a celebration, and it's an opportunity to actually put these clubs in the shop window and give them a moment, because it's a really cluttered area. Trying to find what you want to follow as a rugby fan. Every weekend you've maybe got 3 or 4 games that you'd like to watch, and what do you invest your time in? Now, it's obviously going to be streamed online. There's going to be a big crowd there. It's going to be well backed. Mansfield is a great venue for big games as well. So last year's final was really good. Millennium 2 years ago was unbelievable as well. And I've got no doubt it's going to be exactly the same. There'll be a few apple juices consumed. There'll be good fun, but there'll be good rugby as well. So it's a chance. Obviously, it's a strange point in the calendar being in May. Obviously the Prem final being as kind of late as it is, but it does give people an opportunity to go down and actually watch club rugby before the changes come about next year.
I was going to say that's the one thing that they'll obviously have to deal with. There has been a very long time since they were confirmed as the finalists. We're talking nearly 2 months, but it's nearly here. The excitement's nearly here.
I like finals being later on in the season.
In May.
It's finals. You just kind of on about that vision. You assume the sun's going to be shining and it's going to be baking hot.
It helps the dream.
It does, doesn't it? You just think it might not be, who knows, but I like them late in the season where you culminate and that's all your hard work comes down to the final 80 minutes.
I think it's the gap. It's the gap in terms of how Currie deal with it, because I think Hawick have been involved, especially the cup final, a couple of big games. Currie, yes, they had the semi-final, but it's how that gap's been and how both sides deal with it.
And if you had players playing with the district championship as well, you might get some individual stuff in there and different calls and different plays. So that time training back as a squad is going to be really important to build up to.
Great to hear there from Chris Paterson and Dale Clancy, and thanks to Sean Muir and Jamie Forbes who took their time out ahead of the big final. You can listen to the full episode on the official Scottish Rugby podcast and watch the Scottish Men's Premiership final live on scottishrugby.org this Saturday. Thank you very much for watching.